What's up guys, Omni here, and today we're doing a theory video on how to build Myrrh, a green flying dragon from the Sacred Memories banner. She's probably the strongest unit on the entire banner. First, let's take a look at her stats. If you were to call Myrrh the incarnation of power creep, then you would not be wrong, as she has 167 VST. That's almost 10 stats higher than almost all melee flyers, with the exception of New Year's Camilla, and 4 stats higher than other young dragons like Noe or Faye. Only melee armor units have higher BST than her. Her stats are allocated in a way that makes her a great mixed tank. 36 neutral defense is one of the highest defense stats in the game. It's only one less defense than Baruka, while 31 neutral resistance is very respectable. Her speed is low at 25, but low speed is desirable for a tank anyway, and she has above average attack and health at 33 and 42 respectively. There isn't a weak stat in this bunch. Being a 5-star summon, most people probably won't have the luxury of picking their Boon and Bane, so this video will use neutral stats for the builds. But I would say that speed is the obvious choice for best Bane, while defense or resistance is the best Boon. Attack and health Boon or Bane would have the least impact on her ability to perform. My own Myrrh is plus HP and minus attack, but her BST is so ridiculous it doesn't really matter. Now let's take a look at her base kit. She comes with a legendary weapon in Great Flame, a fantastic weapon which gives her plus 3 attack and prevents enemy doubles if Myrrh has 5 more defense than them. And since it's a breath weapon, it will target the lower defensive stat between res and defense on 2 ranged enemies. Other breath weapons have to be refined to target the lower stat, but Great Flame automatically has it, which is good since it can't be refined anyway. Important to note that even if you have 5 more defense than an armor unit, if they have bow fighter and 5 more speed than Myrrh, they will double her. That is the only exception to the Great Flame defense rule right now, until they introduce Dragon Breaker skills, which they might in the future. The big question, is Great Flame better than Lightning Breath, which has distant counter built into it? The answer is yes, if you have distant counter A skill, or if you want Myrrh to specialize against melee enemies. Bonfire is a great special for Myrrh given her high defense. Fury is good on everyone. However, on Myrrh it's kind of counterintuitive since she's a great mixed tank. When properly buffed, she's likely to take more damage from Fury damage than from the enemy that's attacking her. However, if your focus is only to win 1 or 2 battles with Myrrh, Fury is fine. And lastly, she has the highly desired Hone Dragon skill, which gives a plus 6 attack and speed buff to dragons that start the turn next to her. Honestly, in my opinion, Fortified Dragons is a much better buff for most dragons than Hone Dragons, with the exception of female Corrin, who is the only fast dragon in the game. But anyone who has built their dragons to be fast will love this buff. For a budget build, you can stick with the base kit and just fill in the empty slots since it's a pretty decent base kit. Your choice of drawback, reposition, or swap for the assists, and give her renewal and quick riposte seal. If you stick with Fury, renewal is a great B skill that will counteract the Fury damage and keep her in quick riposte range. Quick riposte is amazing with Great Flame since Myrrh will prevent doubles on most enemies due to her high defense and Great Flame, while quick riposte lets her double anyone that she can counter. Her high defense and resistance stats will ensure that she takes minimal damage and stays in quick riposte range. There's no need to upgrade the quick riposte seal all the way to level 3, but you should at least get it to level 2. As I said before, I don't love Fury on Myrrh, but there aren't really any budget A skills that are objectively better than it. Now let's get into some more premium builds. Remember that as a flying unit, Myrrh cannot inherit skills that are popular on other dragons like Steady Breath and Wrath. At the start I said Great Flame is better than Lightning Breath if you have distant counter, or you want Myrrh to specialize against melee enemies. With distant counter, you can stick with renewal in the B slot and quick riposte in the seal slot, but I would recommend putting quick riposte in the B slot so you can use distant defense in the seal slot. This will help boost her tankiness even more, and I say it's better to take less damage in the first place than to heal up from damage taken. Remember that since Myrrh is a flyer, bows will be super effective against her, so this build will mainly target mages unless you super buff her defense. Since she targets the lower defensive stat, She doesn't need a high damage special that kill enemies, which gives her the luxury to use Aether. Thanks to the limited damage Myrrh will take thanks to Great Flame preventing doubles and her high mixed defensive stats, Aether is a great special for her to keep her HP high and stay in quick riposte range. I know it's a waste to not use Home Dragons, but like I said before, most dragons don't actually need it or prefer fortified dragons anyway. So you can drop that if you want and give her Attack Ploy to further boost Myrrh's tankiness. Her resistance is high enough for it to hit most enemies, including many high damage mages. You can also use Guidance to give more mobility to your team, though I think it's better to have Myrrh be the focal point of your team given how powerful she is. I think this is her best build. With proper support, Myrrh won't take any damage except from super effective weapons, though as the game's only flying dragon, she has the most weaknesses in the game, like Falchion, Excalibur, Archers, Naga, and Divine Naga. You could use IO Shield to remove the weakness against bows and Excalibur. It wouldn't be a bad call to do that, since bows would then become a primary target for her with Distant Counter in her build. But even if you don't use IO Shield, only Brave Bow units have the potential to actually defeat Myrrh. Even then, they might fail if she has good support or defense tiles. If you don't have Distant Counter, then you can go with Close Defense or Steady Stance to focus against melee enemies. You can double up on Close Defense with the Seal Slot as well. With this combo, she will have 48 neutral defense and 43 neutral resistance on enemy phase. In this case, I would switch the special back to Bonfire or Ignis, since Myrrh would take so little damage from melee enemies, and Ignis would let her capitalize on her high defense against full health enemy. This build makes Myrrh more of a specialist compared to the Distant Counter build, which has a more well-rounded role. If you don't have Distant Counter but want Myrrh to be well-rounded, you can of course just switch to Lightning Breath, which is still a great weapon for her. You lose out on a lot of attack, but since she's a dragon, Myrrh doesn't really need high attack. Furthermore, it can be refined to boost her tankiness even more, though you lose the ability to prevent doubles. I would recommend to use the refinery on the lower of the two defensive stats, but it's perfectly fine to double up on the higher one, especially if the lower stat was a Bane. A resistance refinery makes Attack Ploy even more effective. Lightning Breath, you can opt to use both close defense and distant defense just to take 6 to 12 less damage from everyone. But I would recommend to double up on distant defense, since I believe ranged enemies are generally the bigger threat. And switch back to Bonfire due to the cooldown penalty from Lightning Breath. With this build, Myrrh's offensive output is lower than other dragons who can use Steady Breath and Aether, which is a ridiculously powerful combo. But Myrrh is by far the tankiest dragon in the game. And again, since she targets the lower defense stat, she doesn't really need high attack to kill enemies. If for some reason you want Myrrh to be a real menace on your defense team, it's better to stick with Great Flame, since the Lightning Breath build makes her vulnerable on player phase. For her teammates, I would recommend pairing her up with allies that will boost her defensive stats. Frankly, she's actually much better on a Flyer Emblem team than Dragon Emblem, due to easy access to Fortified Flyers and potential access to Ward Flyers if you have Minerva or New Year's Camilla. But Myrrh would be great on any team, and even without any buffs at all. As a Flyer on a mixed team, she can provide support with Guidance, though that's not quite as effective without the use of Dragback or Hit and Run, which aren't great on enemy phase units. On Flyer Emblem or mixed teams, you want Myrrh to have one of the Distant Counter builds. Dragon Emblem, she can focus on the melee build, since other dragons can pick up the slack against ranged enemies. Regardless of what team you put her on, you'll probably want to keep her clear of super effective weapons to bring someone to deal with Falchion and Naga. And bows if you don't give her IO Shield. These are my recommended builds for Myrrh. Of course, you don't have to follow them. Build her however you like. She doesn't really need that much investment due to her incredibly high stats, but she can become an unstoppable force with support and investment. So good luck to those of you who want to build her, and may I wish to never find your terrifying Myrrhs in Arena. Have a nice day.
Watch this.